afternoon, everyone. My name is Leisha Jackson from FM Systems. I want to thank you all for attending today's webinar, Visualize Your Facility Space in Powerful New Ways. We are really excited about some of the new features that we have released as part of our space management module and are looking forward to showing them to you today. During the presentation, the lines will be muted, but if you should have any questions, please enter them in the panel on the right-hand side of the screen, and we will answer those at the end. Now I will turn it over to Bill Meyer, our Senior Applications Engineer.
Thank you, Leisha, and thank you everyone for joining today, taking time out of your day to give us a little bit of that time and to be able to see some new products, features, functionality that FM Systems is providing now, and hopefully give you a glimpse at the future of what FM Systems is looking at to do in regard to space management and specifically around the graphic views and the floor plans that we look at from day to day. So just to give you a little background, FM Systems has been doing space management for over 30 years and has really been a technology leader in many ways. And earlier this year, we released the latest version of our product, 8.4, and that includes a brand new HTML5 viewer. So the benefits of the HTML5 technology are that you're no longer limited to plugins. For instance, the Autodesk Design Review or ADR viewer required an ActiveX plugin. We've had a Silverlight viewer, which of course required Silverlight in order to function. But HTML5 technology has really opened the door for us to be able to come in and create a brand new viewer that's unique to us, that has a lot of great enhancements in regards to what you can do. And I'm going to be showing you that today. So without further ado, welcome to the FMX5 viewer in the latest version of FM Interact from FM Systems. So here on my screen, we're actually viewing a report or a dashboard that can give you access into your space and information, and of course always tracking on those metrics and the analytics of the data that you're tracking within space management is obviously of great benefit, and that can be displayed in any number of ways, and this is just one example of that. So I'm going to come over here to my map, and I'm going to drill into a particular location. As we access locations like we have in the past from buildings in order to access floor information, one of the first things that you're going to notice is that the menu structure has changed up here. And one of the neat new features that we've been able to do with the FMX5 viewer is the ability to add the buildings and floor selection right within the viewer itself. So in the past, if you wanted to jump to a different building or floor, you had to kind of get out of the viewer mode and access that through another means. That now is built right into the viewer itself so that we can go in and access other buildings and floors. So great new feature there. Also, when we take a look at the floor plan, here is our list for our typical graphic views, and I'm going to go ahead and select departments here. And what happens with how this viewer now works is each drawing element is being plotted out individually without the limitation of having to wait for the entire floor to load. And you're going to see that more obvious in a moment here when I open a much larger floor plate. We're going to see that those elements kind of drawn on the fly. But what it also means is we can be using that floor plan while things are being drawn in the background. And so it's reducing some of that wait time that we've had to deal with in the past. Now, looking at this graphic view, and obviously we see it's a department's graphic view, so we're seeing our department layout throughout the floor. What our development team has been able to do is create what we have here as multi-select graphic theming. What this feature does is it enables us to be able to go in and control what we see on that floor plan within that graphic view. So you'll see this panel here that I can move around and kind of place where I want it, so it unclutters my view as much as possible of that floor plan. But as I scroll down here and I opened up a predefined graphic view, you're going to notice under departments there's queries, annotations, layers. Those have all now become elements that we can control. So I want to focus your attention on the floor plan graphic and the color coding for the departments, as well as the legend here. And when I go in on my graphic theming panel and I start unchecking some of these objects, you're going to notice that they're disappearing from the graphic view as well as the legend. So I'll uncheck 10322, maybe my 10201 here, and notice that they're disappearing. So this now gives great flexibility to the users of the system if, in fact, they don't want to see certain elements within any of the graphic views. But not only that, it also allows us to be able to add any graphic views. So if I also want to see my vacancy on this particular floor, now I can click on my vacant graphic view, and now I see both my department graphic view and legend as well as my vacant graphic view and legend. So again, just adding much greater flexibility into how you now manage graphic views on any given floor plan. And of course, all the other features are still there within the graphic views themselves in regard to assigning what are the different queries that we want to associate, what are the different color coding that we want to be able to add to the graphic views themselves. Okay, so with that, I want to now take us into maybe just a standard. I'm going to go into my conference room's graphic view here, and let's jump into a completely different floor. So I'm going to go into, in fact, a new building, building 2 and second floor. And then I'm going to select that, and now that knows I need to load this. So notice in the background, things are being loaded on the fly. So this is a pretty big floor plate that we're dealing with, and it's able to load the graphics here pretty quickly. But one thing I notice is that while it adhered to the same graphic view, and it'll do that as you jump to different buildings and floors, but I'm wondering right now, where'd my legend go? So I might maximize this, and now I can see, well, my legend is down here at the lower left, where traditionally, for those of you who've been using the FMX Interact product, this has always been the default. But now, once again, with the FMX5 viewer, we now have the ability to control where that legend resides. So under Actions, I'm going to click on the Place My Legend, and notice that it now highlighted in gray. And now I now have a cursor change, which allows me to drag this legend wherever I'd like on this given floor. So I like mine at the upper right of the floor plan, and I have an option to set this as a default for all the floors, or simply the default for this floor. So you do have the choice to choose that location for all or just the one given floor. And I'm going to click on Place here and then maximize my view, and now I have a view where the legend is where I want it. Also, if I were to choose to print out this graphic view, it's the legend is going to print out associatively as well to the new location. So the print function now has the availability of printing to either the entire floor plan or to the current viewable area. So again, if we're zoomed in like I am right now, I would use the current viewable area and then choose my print options that I would have. And you'll notice on the page, it's just printing to that current viewable area. And I might have some more adjustment availability to me based on my print drivers that I have. Not only that, we also now have the export as a PDF option. So no longer do you have to worry about maybe when you're publishing all of your drawings, you need to publish those to a PDF because maybe some folks prefer PDFs and they want access to that. Now, at each drawing level, or at each floor level rather, I have an export as a PDF option available to me so that I can then open this and have it in a very manageable PDF where I can now control my layers and, of course, if I need to print out from the PDF view, that's available now to me as well. Also, units, another great new feature for any of you who may work for a global organization and you have both property here in the States as well as maybe Europe, Asia, other areas that are using metric. You now have the ability to define at the graphic view level whether we're doing square feet. So I see here my total 7591. If I change this to meters, that is now going to change my information, and you'll see that the legend is now updated for square meters instead of square feet, and that is as quick as going in here and making that selection from the list. So another fantastic new feature that's, I think, really going to help out, especially our global customers, when they're managing different buildings that are in different locations and they want to see those data values update appropriately. Okay? So we've talked about managing the legends, the graphic themes. There is another area that I want to talk to you about, and that is in terms of when we look at our graphic views, and now here you see this vacant and reserved. Sometimes when we're dealing with big floors, those legends end up showing rather small. And we have a way in the graphic themes dialog to now control that. So you may notice that it immediately updated when I went to graphic themes because I had already made an adjustment there. This is something that you can do on the fly. So I changed it to 100 because that fit much better with the size of my floor plate. If I want that even bigger, I'm going to say 150 here, and you'll see that my legend now increases to a greater size. And of course, obviously going the opposite way, if I want to go smaller, maybe down to 50. But I also want to point your attention to controlling the area and the count as well as the labels here. That is now all available right within the graphic theming options down here under the view settings. So we can control that at that level. Okay, so we've seen a lot, we've worked a lot now within the system. The final piece that I want to show you here in terms of enhancements has to do with this little icon up here. I call it the bust icon, and it's the Assign Rooms feature. For any of you who've been pleasured with the task of having to go out and do space audits and make sure that Bob and Jane and Paula are all sitting in their appropriate locations, We had to do that in the past. Sometimes we had to print out, the D-size sheets of paper. I'm aging myself now. I've worked in facilities for over 20 years. So I remember the days well where we used to walk around with, the big plots and have to verify all of our personnel. This takes that effort and makes it very easy. So I'm going to go ahead and select my assign rooms here, and you're going to notice I have another movable window that shows up in my window. And it says assign rooms here, and drag a person to a space in the floor or drag a person to this panel. So there's a few options available to us, and as I zoom in on my space here, maybe I'm walking this space, and I see that if I select this space, I can see that this is Helen Vargas is sitting here. And of course, the room information down below is still the same that we've had in the past. But now, graphically, all I have to do is maybe Helen, for some odd reason, moved from this location down to this workstation. And all I have to do is drag and drop. And notice that it's now updating on the fly. If I drag Whitney here from this location into the new location, it is keeping track of every change I make. And now I may move Jay into Whitney's old location, etc. Not only that, but let's say I don't know where someone has gone, but as I'm walking this space, I notice that, for instance, Dorothy Rodriguez here is actually not sitting there. As I look into the cubicle, there's no computer, there's no assets, nothing is in there. And I don't really know where she's gone. I've maybe asked around, nobody else knows. So for right now, I'm going to place her just in this window. I have not assigned her. You'll see it, she shows up as unassigned. And then potentially, maybe as I continue my space audit, I may be going, down lower within this floor, and it could be that, lo and behold, now I'm walking in this area of the space. I see Dorothy is now sitting down in this location. So all I have to do is drag her out of this area and drop her into that location. Once I'm done with all of my assignments within the given floor plan, now I can save those assignments. So nothing is actually live in the system until I actually save that. And what's unique, and for those of you, again, who've been using our software for a while now, you probably already know this, is that when we make changes, such as changing the locations here on the floor plan, they occur in real time. So right now, Dorothy sits in this 2A2-132D location, and I am effectively relocating her to 2A2-332C. So once I save this, a couple things happen. Notice that this location is no longer crosshatched as a vacant space because I've reassigned her, so it's no longer vacant. And likewise, if I want to go in and do a search for Dorothy, and I might do a search just on her first name, or I could have done a search on her last name, Rodriguez. Again, our search will search through the entire record, and I'm going to click on my 19 more records here, and here she is, Dorothy Rodriguez, and lo and behold, it's the new 332C location, and of course, I click on that search result, and it zooms right in. You're going to notice how fast this new FMX5 viewer is responding and how quickly it zoomed into that room and, of course, gave me the information about Dorothy. Okay? So for today, we had a half an hour allotted. This really covers what I had to show you about some of our existing technologies. Stay tuned because sometimes with each hotfix release, our development group is actually adding new features and new functions, and they're coming very quickly now with the benefits that we're seeing from the new HTML5 and our new FMX5 viewer. So now I'm going to go to our question section. And I know a lot of you have come in since we started this and maybe have missed some of this, but I want to point your attention to the GoToWebinar panel. And right, at least in my panel, right about in the middle, a little below middle, is a section for questions. And that's what I'm going to be looking at now. So please feel free, based on what you've seen or maybe what you didn't see, to ask your questions. So already I have John asking, how do you set the new viewer as your viewer? Great question, John. So let me pull my panel back over, and let me actually show that to you because it's in your standard menu system here on the left side navigation. And if I go under FM Interact Help, I have the option for Floor Plan Viewer. And that's actually going to pull up and set this. So you could potentially have different users within your organization who have preference for the different viewers. And it's going to be dependent on what browser that they're using. And they may have multiple browsers. So if they're on a Mac, maybe Chrome, Firefox, Safari. On a Mac, on Windows, obviously, Firefox, Chrome, as well as Internet Explorer 9. Now, I will tell you, Internet Explorer 9 and below do not support HTML5, so the new FMX5 viewer would not be available. It is, however, available on version 10 and 11, and I think we are actually testing out the new Windows 10 browser called Edge. So we're testing that out, and support for that should be coming soon as well. So great question there on how do you set that. So within any of these, I can choose which viewer is going to be my preference there. Okay, next set of questions. Julie, you ask, can general users click elements on and off? And if so, can you restrict certain layers they can see? So at this time, Julie, you can't restrict specific layers. However, you can restrict control of whether or not a particular user has access to the graphic theming. So basically, they either have access to graphic theming or they do not. But at this time, the control is not allocated to any of the specific layers. Now, that being said, you could, of course, permission certain graphic views to certain users, and within those graphic views, there is control over, maybe what layers are displaying, etc. So there might be some areas that we can look at there that we can leverage some of this technology. Okay, looks like Liza, you have asked, will a video of this webinar be made available? You mentioned firewall issues limited you, it sounds like, maybe from being able to see what I've been showing. So I'm pretty sure, and Lisa, if you're on the line, feel free to jump in, but I'm
Yes.
pretty sure.
Yep.
Okay.
We have been recording it, and we will be sending out the link to the recording afterwards.
Very good. Thank you. All right, next question comes from Mark. Mark, you ask, what is the minimum role required to use the bust icon to assign people to space? A great question. That would be the liaison or the planner roles within the Move Management module. So you would have to be a power user within Move Management to go in and make those changes in the FMX5 viewer. And I will actually get further clarification because there may be other roles that will enable that access as well. So keep watch for maybe an email that might come out that might provide further clarification on that. But great question. Chris, maybe a similar question. You asked, can this be permissioned to specific users? And I'm not sure maybe specifically what you're asking in regards to what can be permissioned, but you can control, like I mentioned earlier, like the graphic themes, the assign rooms feature. Those can be controlled and permissioned to particular users. But the FMX5 viewer as a whole is pretty much a global setting that you would give users access to. Okay. Pete, you ask the question and you say, we have version 8.4.0. Is the Assignment Manager graphic view available? So while FMX5 became available in 8.4, the Assign Rooms, if I remember correctly, it came out with the release of 8.4.1. So what I would recommend there, Pete, is to contact your regional manager and to ask them, and they can get you up to speed on exactly which version, if you wanted to use the assign room function, would be for an upgrade. Chris, you come in with the next question for, can you execute a move request? I'm glad you asked that because that is actually part of the roadmap enhancements and is going to be available very soon. What I mean by very soon is it could be in the next couple of weeks, but most definitely in the next month or two. And what I mean by this feature is you will be able to create individual moves as well as move projects directly from the graphic view. So think of being able to select a window around an area on a floor, or select individual locations as well as the window in order to define a move project. For me personally, I am super excited about that feature because, again, back in my old facilities days, you know, that we have the move project that we have today, and you can do by building floor and by department, but oftentimes we're doing renovation projects in specific areas of a floor that include multiple people. This new feature for being able to create moves and move projects right from the graphics, I think is going to be huge. So stay tuned, Chris. That is coming, and it's coming quickly. I believe they're in the final stages. Okay, next question comes from Deepak. I hope I pronounced your name properly. You ask, have you sent PDF? PDF can be exported quickly. Is it possible to export AutoCAD as a drawing file? I think I understand what you're getting at here, Deepak. And the answer is no, not at this time. So the ADR viewer allowed you to save a file in the DWF format that could then be imported into a DWG. At this time, with the FMX5 viewer, we don't have an export to a DWG. But again, stay tuned. I mean, things are happening and happening quickly. I have not heard of that one on the roadmap, but I do know that development is informed of these webinars and some of the requests that are made. So we'll make sure and get this over, and who knows, you know, if we might not see that as a feature that comes down soon. Okay, next question is from Ian. Ian, you ask, does applying a default legend position to all floors apply it on a building-by-building basis, or does it apply it across all buildings? Whew, okay, a big question, and I'm going to try and answer this as best I can as I think you're asking the question. The option when you're doing the place legend, and how are we on time? Well, we've gone a little bit over, but let me actually jump back into a floor plan view here, and let's take a quick look at that, because I want to make sure that you have this question answered sufficiently. If I'm just doing a quick search for a person here. And then it's going to jump me into the graphic for a smaller building here. So if I come in and I modify my place legend, and I choose to say, you know what, I want my legend down here for this particular floor, and I'm going to set this as the default for all the floors. Okay, so when I click on that, I now get this additional legend that says replaced previously saved locations, or only set this location for floors where a location is not specified. So I think the top one is going to manage this for every single floor. So if I go into departments, we would see that down here. Now, if I jump to a different, let's say a different building and a different floor, because it's a different building, that should be managed. And well, no, now that I see it, it looks like, to answer your question, it is covering all of your buildings if you choose that option. It's like redefining where you want your default legend for all your buildings, okay? Let's see. So I hope I answered Ian appropriately, but we can always follow up. Victoria, you ask, is Internet Explorer 8 still supported with 8.4.1? Good question. I don't know, to be honest. So we'll have to get back to you on that. But I do know your next question of, is Chrome fully tested and supported with 8.4.1? The answer is yes. Chrome for Windows is fully tested and supported in 8.4.1. Chrome for Mac is not. That's not to say it won't work, it just hasn't gone through full testing, okay? Let's see, another question comes in from Marco, and you ask, if possible, export data set in Excel. So to that, Marco, I would say the graphics don't export into Excel, but we do have an export option inside of the data views. So if I'm going into a data view, for instance, and, oops, that's a report, not a data view, Bill. So let me open up my views. You do have the option, and this option is actually at the data view level, so you can control your export options from your data views by data views. So here I can go in, and let's say I'm just going to run a query for lab space. So I want to see all of my lab space. Instead of 7,300 rooms, there's 174, and I can right-click and export this to PDF, Doc, and Excel. So the data is able to be exported into Excel, but the graphics, there is no export option into Excel from a graphics perspective. I hope I answered your question appropriately, Marco. Next question comes from Darcy. And Darcy, you asked, can you change the font used on the legend? Well, a good question. The font is controlled. I don't think at this time we have control of that in the particular floor plans themselves. So when you create the graphic view, in fact, let me go ahead and go into a graphic view setting. These are great questions, folks, because you're stumping me on some of them, which is unusual. But I'm going to edit an existing graphic view, and let me just do vacant and reserved. And I'm going to go into my cross-hatching. I can change color. So I have no option for the font there. I can change the height. And then same thing, I think, in annotation options. But I want to say that the font is controlled. There is like a CSS type of setting somewhere in the software. So I think there is some flexibility. But again, you stumped me on that one, and I'm not certain, Darcy. So stay tuned for a better answer than what I can give here today. Right now, the final question is from Victoria, and you ask, which security options have changed for 8.4.1? And honestly, Victoria, I'd have to go into some version documentation. I don't know off the top of my head what security options, but I have seen some documents fly around about that. So again, we'll have to get back to you on that one. And now you just asked, can you show your tree view? I'm not sure what you're talking about. If it's in regards to the tree view, the system administration tree view. I certainly can. I know some folks are probably going to be falling off. This was only allotted for a half an hour. I want to thank you all for your time here. I am happy to spend a little bit more time answering some questions, but for anyone who needs to go, thank you for spending the time with us today. Victoria here under security groups, roles. Honestly, I don't think you're going to see much changes in terms of the tree view. I think where you're going to see changes is going to be like, for instance, under privileges here. So if I go into privileges, and now you might see some more settings defined here. And what was I looking for? Scenario planning, maybe it's under system. Dashboard, no, it wasn't under systems. Setting domains is new to me, so that might be a new function. So we have, gosh, looks like a lot of stuff under here. Website stacking, notification, error logging, AutoCAD, Revit, schema. There was one in particular, when I was playing around with the new viewer, and settings for the new viewer, specifically around the assign rooms, I remember seeing, and I thought it was under privileges, some settings for that. But right now, I am not seeing that. So what I'll do, Victoria, is we'll research some of that, and we'll get some of the documentation sent out to you. Specifically on security. And likewise, for anyone else, obviously, if you're in need of further demonstration or further questions, again, please feel free to contact your regional manager. If you are not yet an FM Systems customer, then we have contact information on our web page. Go ahead and shoot us an email, give us a phone call, and we'll do our best to answer those questions. Let's see, was there any final questions that have been coming through? I think the final one here, Victoria, wondering if the tree view items have been split out. You can tell by looking at the plus. I think that's what I was doing, is I was clicking on some of the pluses, so I'm not sure if that helped out. Go ahead and shoot me an email, Victoria. I know you have my email, and we can take this offline and address it. So I'd be happy to do that with you. Okay? All right. Well, again, thank you everybody for your time. Those of you who've hung out this long, I really appreciate it, and hopefully this was of great benefit for you. Okay? Well, take care, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.